Hey, Johnny.
What's going on?
Happy post 4th of July, everyone.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us. We're talking about those tone ninjas.
Tone ninjas. Huh?
Those guys that would sneak up and not tell you what tone they're using and just whack you in the face with it.
That's ridiculous. Everyone knows everyone's tone these days.
Well, that is the
Have
thing.
you seen Rig Rundown? For God's sake.
I have watched Rig Rundown.
Come on.
I liked it in one of our videos. I said, like, tones in your fingers. And like I was copying like Noel Gallagher. It's in my heart. It's in my head. Got to have these fingers. And then one of my friends from overseas sent me a link of like Slash's tone chain. I was like, oh, never mind.
There it is. Here's the tones.
It's insane. Well, just like the actual tone paths that people use.
Right.
But we were talking about these cats that sort of disguise and hide and don't let you find out what they're playing.
It happens.
It does. And I remember Jack White was like one of the dudes that used to do this hardcore back in the day.
Yeah.
He still kind of does it. But I remember like back at the White Stripes, there's like a box built around the pedals.
Okay.
It was this big like red box usually, and it's painted like so you couldn't see what gear he had. And
he does it now, right? He paints them all the same. I don't know if it's so much that as much as it's just a cool color motif. But kind of, I mean, I understand that for him though, because his tone is very, it's got the weird octave stuff going on, and it's, you can't really play those things, those songs
without it. No, and that's so much of what his sound was, is like he crafted that cool thing from like crappy guitars sometimes to like, but you could see easily like, oh, he's using this airline thing. What's that? And then what's that sound though? Why does it sound so good?
Remember he had that weird Gretsch with a microphone we pull out?
Yes.
It was attached to the guitar?
Yes.
So weird.
I mean, but it kind of created a mystique though.
Yes.
I think, and a lot of bands back in that period were doing that. This is sort of like in the early yearning ages of the internet too.
Right.
Like the internet's been around for a little bit, but the real, like, like people starting to share things a bit starting to happen, and like photos sharing and Flickr.
Right.
And things like that was popping out, like MySpace was a thing. And so people were trying to figure out. So I remember being in the New York scene and stuff, like even my wee band, like we hit our stuff because like people were trying to figure out how, because what we are sound, because we used an old keyboard, and we gaffer taped it was an old Roland keyboard. It's not a secret anymore because this band doesn't exist. But
and no one ever cared.
And no one gave a rat's ass about it. But and then I think we had a PV Classic 30 that we taped out what the amp was. It just looked like a box. That was what the keyboard's tone was. And I was playing like a red knob Fender Twin with like and I didn't really use any pedals, but we would just sort of like we'd cover up like where the tone settings were, just completely ridiculous.
But I mean, there is something about that adds a mystique, right? That like makes it feel like, ooh, it's unattainable. Yeah, it's psychological, right? Which I think is kind of cool.
I think that was part of it. As like a 24-year-old, you're thinking you understand this all too, and you're.
But I mean, that sort of goes back even to what people played. Like I've heard stories, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure that you will, in the comments of like Van Halen when he was first doing the tapping stuff. He turns back to the audience because he didn't want
I've heard these same stories.
To see, like because in the 80s it was all about, it wasn't necessarily your tone, it was the techniques, right? You were doing like the trick things you were doing. So
I still don't understand how his tone was so good too. Because I've seen people play the same rigs, and he was just so good.
Yeah, I mean,
he just. And we were talking about him earlier this morning too. Like it's frustrating how good that man was.
Is amazing.
It's different. Oh, quick shout out to Don too. He sent me a hairbrush. He said, please comb your hair. So I'll try this later. I found it unopened or opened already in the shop, and I couldn't. And there's some hair attached to it, so I thought you might have used it for your beard. Can I just touch it? I won't comb it because I don't know what beards. I don't know what happens if you touch a person's beard. It's like touching a woman's foot.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's like, now I claimed you. You're mine. But thanks, I appreciate it. Even though it might have been an insult, I think it's really awesome, and I loved it. So any hairbrushes that come,
I think it's a nice hairbrush.
I should collect them.
You should.
Because that's my first hairbrush that I own myself.
You should have a campaign, try to get everyone to send you a hairbrush.
And then
40,000 hairbrushes.
If I get enough hairbrushes, I'll slick my hair back one day. I have to put a lot of goop in it because I comb it back and it starts to stick up slowly. It's a nightmare. It's like, just imagine all of your back hair was just transferred to your head.
Yeah.
That's
weird.
That's it. And chest hair too. It's just disturbing. It's like the chest hair in Stranger Things. That's clearly fake chest hair that the one main character is wearing. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
The season's good. I'm watching. I have the last episode.
I've enjoyed it. Yeah. Are you to the last one?
I'm on the last season. I have the last episode I'm going to watch tonight.
I still got quite a few left.
I've enjoyed it. It's a fun show.
I've enjoyed it as well. I just saw the guitar solo thing in there to make it relevant. Did you see that? where he's like, maybe I'm farther than you.
You must be far. I'm still in like, I'm
in like episode 9, so maybe that is next to last. I don't know.
Yeah, episode 9 is the last one.
Is that the last one?
I think it's the last episode.
Okay, well then I'm in the middle of episode 9.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's no guitar solo.
Yeah.
I think there's only 9. Anyway, sorry. Neil Young was pretty secretive about his stuff too back in the day, I believe. It was sort of and he had that cool amp that he created as well. Ooh. So do you remember his little thing he did that could switch?
Well, vaguely. I don't know a ton about it, but
I mean, that's a whole other video. But
I mean, like, I think some of the like blues players would turn their backs, even like Buddy Guy, stuff like that, right?
In the early days,
yeah.
Before, like, it was like just so like other cats couldn't steal their stick.
Well, because back then, right, it wasn't get on and watch a YouTube video to learn this lick. It was like sit down with a record for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. So I can understand not wanting someone to just come up and see what you did after you spent, hours and hours and hours of hard-won progress
and bluesing,
and just be like, oh, it's that cool.
No, it is funny because we live in this day and age where we're always trying to copy whoever's tone we hear.
Right.
And we want to and that didn't it's always been a thing, but the ease and accessibility of it is so different today.
Right.
Because everyone just puts out like, this is what I play. Like I say, if anyone asks me like, what are you playing? Like I don't use any pedals and I'm using this amp and this guitar. It's pretty.
I do think also, I think this is interesting just culturally. Like I think there back then was a competition. Right?
Yes.
Like, because it was cutthroat. Like, if you were in Chicago back then, you were playing the blues. Or some other cities.
What was that blues competitions called?
Cutting heads?
Yeah. That's cool. This is a neat thing. A lot of people don't know that phraseology.
But, yeah, that was the idea. And now I feel like we've become this kind of a little bit hippy-dippy. Like, here, I want you to succeed. Do this thing. Like, have my licks. Here's all. I play these. I put them on Instagram, and here's the tabs underneath, and they scroll. I mean,
Well, I thought when we were sort of prepping for this conversation, I was thinking about, I was watching one of those old Dave Chappelle specials. It was maybe a few years old. When he was talking about when some old comic wanted to borrow one of his jokes for an act. And he was like, yeah, man, he was an 18-year-old kid. And he's like, yeah, you can borrow it. And cool, so the guy borrowed it. And then he came and he saw him using that bit shows later. And he's like, hey, I don't think you use the joke anymore. He's like, well, can I buy it from me? He's like, no, I want to keep that joke. He's like, well, screw you, I'm going to steal it. And it's like, that was part of that mentality back then, too, of, like, these are my licks.
Yeah.
These are, now we've reached such a level of acrobatics of lickery. It's like, it's almost, if you're trying to, so many of these licks are unstealable. It's because they're so hard. You
think about all the guys just in the blues world who, like, they have their bag of Albert King licks and then B.B. King and then Freddie King. You know what I mean? And those guys back then, these were my, you know what I mean? Like, that's all you would do, right? You would have your little bag of lick things. And
well, I think that was the story of when Clapton first heard Stevie Ray Vaughan, he was like unimpressed because he was like, oh, he emulates all these great artists perfectly, but he doesn't really have his own voice. And then all of a sudden, then you heard Stevie doing his own thing. He's like, oh, my bad. I don't think he ever said that because that'd be weird to hear him saying my bad. I just don't think Clapton would say those words. Maybe. I don't know. It'd be fun to have tea with Clapton and talk about
like to have tea
those
with
words.
Clapton.
It could happen one day.
It's true.
It's
hopefully he doesn't die before then.
No, he won't. But I think we have a neat little world of the tone ninjas out there. And like go back and explore these guys too a little bit and what they were creating, when they were doing it. It's a fun journey.
It is a fun journey.
It's I used to do it too as a young person that thought it mattered.
And it doesn't have to just be players. It could be builders. Remember the Klons and the Dumbles of the world and their black goop. So throwing that in there.
God, that is funny. The black goop. Because it's such what John was talking about. Like they would put the stuff in it, so if you try to reverse engineer it, it would break.
Yeah, you couldn't see the circuit or whatever.
Which I understand because there's a lot of people today too, and we've had a person do this. I believe, like buy something from us, take it apart, like an amplifier, and then try to like reverse engineer it themselves. I believe, and then return it. It was really a sketchy deal. And then because we sent the amp back to the amp manufacturer, and they're like, "Yeah, somebody definitely took this apart. This is not right."
That's right. I was thinking about what you're talking about. No,
because I don't want to do any hearsay. That was a definitely crooked situation. Something seemed off the whole time.
Weird.
From like phone conversation one to the resolution of that, which was really frustrating. But it was people are weird out there. But this stealing tones and hiding tones, it's a fun little game, and like. And create your own and have fun with it. And if you want to keep it secret.
Yeah, but it is sort of a golden time. You can pretty much go find how to do any tone your heart desires.
Well, you can create any tone too. Depending on your skill level. And with all the toys we have.
But you can use those famous tones as sort of like a springboard, like the preset patch in your Helix, and then you build from there.
In our case, is a springboard to adequacy.
Maybe.
To okayness.
I'm still trying to get there.
Like I'm climbing up to average really quickly.
Yeah.
My wife and my oldest son did this hike at Grandfather Mountain, the peak of it. I forgot what it's called, but I looked it up on the internet later because she was like, yeah, it was really not what we thought it was going to be. She had a lot of fun. He loved it. He's 9. She's older than that.
Thank goodness.
But it was like super dangerous. There's ladders and like off. There's no like things you're holding on to. You probably just climb the ladder up, like 20 feet at a time.
Yeah.
And then it's just a cliff drop. So if you let go, like you die, I guess you break your neck or something. But I don't know why I'm talking about that right now. There was a reason. I have a segue and I just got distracted. I'm sorry. I lost my.
But no one died.
No one died this weekend, but it was really cool. They found their own tone. There's no segue anymore. I just totally botched it. Go home. I'm sorry. I'm gonna leave now. It was a crazy weekend.
Hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell. We hope you had a good holiday weekend, July 4th. We'll see you next time.